some of the happiest times in my career was when Mark Thomas and I, we did Loose Talk on Radio 1, but we were always getting in trouble. We were always having to apologise to various people. My favourite letter of complaint that this young lad wrote, I'm 22, I'm a devout Hindu. I wasn't offended, but he said, in fact, me and my friends found it really funny. And then P.S., you two are in the next world.
So excited. I'm always excited. I know, well, it's Frankie. I'm always excited. But today, I am shooting one of the first people on the alternative circuit, I suppose, Kevin Day.
It's very hard not to glance at the camera.
Don't do that. We're breaking all the fifth walls. Do we hug? I don't know how we do it.
We can hug. Yeah. It's North London. I'm slightly disoriented, but I understand the water goes down the plug holes differently.
It does, but you're North London, aren't you? Oh yeah, Crystal Palace. Hang on a second.
We'll start this again, shall we? The worst possible start to an interview we could possibly have.
Thanks for coming, Kevin.
It's been great. I did assume the whole white thing was there for
Kevin Day. We've got Kevin Day in the studio from South London. Because if I said North London, he gets very, very, very annoyed.
I feel I should start by apologising to this lovely bearded young fella here.
Let me just get Frankie on, because I always get a picture of Frankie.
Frankie had this lovely plan in his head about how it was all going to work, and it went a bit tits up as soon as we arrived, basically. But I'm sure he has the look of the sort of bearded hipster who can just edit his way around anything.
He's a great editor.
He looks like a good editor.
Because what he's got to try and do is edit the fact that you came in.
I mean, I came here to answer questions, but
I haven't even asked you.
One.
Let's start at the beginning. When did you start? Why did you start? Where did you start?
I was dared into it because I used to live with my then girlfriend just down the road from the Banana Cabaret, from the Bedford pub. And a group of us, normally after football, we'd find ourselves going to watch the comedy in the Banana Cabaret. And so it's people like Mark Steele, Jeremy Hardy, who are a little bit ahead of me. Yeah. I get a bit antsy sometimes with like the Alternative Comedy Memorial Society, who basically don't quite understand what it was like back in the early 80s, because there was very few people doing topical political comedy. It was variety. Variety was the thing.
Okay.
So for every Mark Steele or Jeremy Hardy, you had a bloke diving off a ladder into a bowl of water.
And
Iceman. An Iceman who'd literally put a block of ice in the thing. Or you had Pierre Hollins on a unicycle. So this idea that it was a hotbed of anti-government rhetoric simply wasn't true. I enjoyed it, but I was the one who'd be going, seriously? £5 to watch a bloke melt a block of ice to shut me up? My mates booked me an open spot.
Yeah.
The theory being, well, he'll know how difficult it is now, shit and unfunny he is, and then he'll be more generous towards everybody else. They jokingly said, we're going to book you this open spot. Oh, yeah, fine. Great. I said, not here though. I don't want to do it here, Banana Cabaret, because obviously I won't be able to come back again and be in the audience. So they booked me a gig at the old Meccano Club. I did my first open spot that night, and Mark Thomas was on, and it was his third ever open spot. So I cobbled together this 5 minutes of stuff, and I was nervous, but I wasn't terrified because I knew I was only going to do it once.
Right.
I went on stage, and my first line was, I'm really sorry, I'm a bit late, I'm a bit flustered. I said, I got the tube, I fell down the gap. I said, they really need to get some sort of warning about that, don't they? So which got, and that sort of nice chuckle, that sort of off drive for 4 at Lord's, and then, oh yes, fine. So, but it went fine, it was all right.
So it went fine?
But it went well enough for the guy who ran the place. He said, oh, that was, you want to come back and do it again? I went, no. The same thing, do I have to write something new? He said, no, just come back and do that again. So 2 weeks later, I went back and did it again.
To the Meccano?
To the Meccano. And it got the same response. He went, do you want to do 10 minutes? I went, oh, mate, I struggled enough to get that. I came off stage after that 10 minutes thinking, this is new, isn't it? This is interesting. Suddenly I was doing an open spot a week and then 2 open spots a week. And then I started to think, I'm really meeting people. But I still thought it was still resolutely middle class. And I assumed that people like Jeremy Hardy, Mark Steele, Linda Smith had been to drama school or university, as a lot of the acts had done. I consider myself South London working class.
Right.
God rest Janey Godley, who I loved Janey Godley. I would meet her every year in Edinburgh, we'd have a drink, and she would just laugh. She said, "You and Mark Thomas, call yourself working class." And she would tell you about her upbringing, and you go, "Actually, no, we're not working class."
There's difference between Scottish working class.
Well, but it turns out we're not quite as working class as we thought.
Kevin, if you're enjoying this episode, I've got to do this bit as well. Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, T's and C's apply.
But subscribe, Steve Best Shoots.
You're not doing some kind of Patreon?
I should do, shouldn't I? I was thinking of doing that. I didn't have to do that.
It's complicated, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah. Well, it's not, but it...
You're getting into another one now. Just like and subscribe.
Yeah, sorry. I've been thrown out of university. The only thing I was interested in was history and archaeology. Right, so the only things you can do if that's all you're interested in is teach history or become an archaeologist. So I was furious because I got put in an all-male hall. Freshers night, meeting this mature student. She was 24, but she was an agriculture student. So let's just say that farmers' daughters have a more robust attitude to the physical side of life than people I'd met through Catholic schools in South London. After 3 months, I was called up by the authorities to say that it's quite clear you're not suited.
Oh, they chucked you out?
They threw me out. And also, I was actually like day 2 when I turned out archaeologist, I said, like, "Where's my trowel? I want to."
Oh, you want to start digging?
I want to start digging. And it turns out it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
When I left, they threw me out. I was like, "Oh, fuck you and fuck it." So I got a job as a builder, and day 1 I got a trowel. Day 1 I got a trowel on this building site. So the early 80s I got a job in the London Ambulance Service, and I loved that job. And by the time I was dared into doing the open spot, so I was 23, 24, which is quite old now. That'd be old to start now. I was quite a senior manager in the London Ambulance Service. I had no intention of not continuing that career. Finally, I'd found something, settled down.
Yeah.
And gradually, after about a year, I was just in love. Yeah. I was in love with comedy.
So it was a gradual kind of...
It's a total gradual. There was never a moment it was never like a light bulb moment.
Oh, keep that.
It was never a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Never a light bulb moment. What happened then was that after about a year and a half, I was having to tell some of my staff off for coming in late regularly when I'd been arriving after they had. Right. Because I'd been working till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then oversleeping I'd be calling people into my office to say that you need to sort this out. And they go, "You didn't get it till 10:30. What happened was I'd already used my annual leave, and then, I don't know if you remember Simon Godley and Phil Clark, the nice people.
He's a dentist.
He's a dentist now. He's the world's funniest dentist. But they said, "Look, do you fancy coming up to do Edinburgh?" And I went, I don't know what that is. And it's the Fringe Festival. I said, "Again, I don't know what it is. So would you want to come up and do 2 weeks with us?" So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to do this, but because I'd already had my annual leave, I put the idea to my boss, "Can I have 2 weeks unpaid leave?" Not really. So I went up there and Edinburgh I was just like, my God, I'd never experienced anything like Edinburgh. And this was old-timey Edinburgh. There was 2 venues at the Pleasance. Right. There's 19 now. Yeah. Right. And I went to Edinburgh and I've got to have some of it. So the year after that, I was then asked by, oddly enough, a Danish double act asked me to go up and be their support act. We met, so there's this Danish feminist double act who are exactly as funny as they sound. But they had a massive row the first night because one of them had been having sex with a man and the other one was so furious that she'd let down the feminist matriarchy that they had this massive row and they both fucked off back to Copenhagen. So I've got my room there. So I spent the next 2 weeks just doing different odd gigs here and there. Right. Meeting more people, and then 3 years after that I went up, so I did a show with John Maloney, did a show with Nick Hancock, and by then it was just complete. I became a professional comedian, and basically on the alternative comedy circuit then, the one ambition was to do the Comedy Store. Right. We were headlining the store, I was comparing the store by then. Yeah. Again, much as I loved the store, I found myself more and more wanting to be on stage longer, to people that had specifically paid to see me. So I started to develop towards my first ever Edinburgh. I remember the first time I did a 40 minutes. I was so proud of myself that I'd done 40 minutes. Yeah, it's an achievement. And then you come up with your first hour. Yeah. And then I was terrified. I was really terrified then because I thought, well, now I'm 8 years in, 7 years in. There's no going back for this now. If this doesn't work, what do we do? Yeah. Became increasingly impatient with the circuit in a way, and there's nothing worse than still being on the circuit 30 years later. I'm much more interested. So I started to think the circuit wasn't for me anymore. It just wasn't. Harry Thompson, God rest his soul, was a producer. But he used to produce They Think It's All Over. Like the most laddish sports quiz, you know. And Harry started to ask me, he said, do you want to come and do it? I said, well, come and be on it.
Yeah.
He went, no, I think you'd be great as part of the writing team. I go, Harry, I'm a stand-up comedian. If I write for anyone, I'm writing for me. After about a year, my agent phoned up and said, look, they're really keen to get you on. This is what they pay you at a daily rate. In which case I phoned Harry up and said, why didn't you tell me that? If you said that, the very first day, I'd have been writing on the show a year ago, basically.
I'd have bought my house by now.
And then I was writing on them on the Buzzcocks for the longest time, and then I was writing on 8 out of 10 Cats.
I didn't know that.
And you suddenly go, do you know what, this is a much easier way of making a living than schlepping to Sheffield on a Wednesday night. If somebody I've never met before says to me, what do you do? I'm initially furious because I think, hold on a second, that's Kenny Days. What do you mean? What do you mean, what do I do? I still say stand-up comedy, even though I probably do 8 or 9 gigs a year. That's what it says on my passport, stand-up comedian.
Does it?
Yeah, which is a mistake because several times it's always coming back into the country when they go, oh yeah, you might have to prove that. Yeah. And it's like, fucking hell, yeah, you're hilarious, mate. It's the thing in my life I'm most proud of. I got my first mortgage off the back of live work. Yeah. And in those days, all you had to do was you had to get people who ran clubs to sign that you did 10 gigs a year there, and the bank manager would go, oh, that's fine. Yeah. You can't make a living out of the circuit now. So increasingly, what they're doing, Edinburgh has become a real focal point for them. So, and they make their money out of a new show every year. I'm going to say it, in my day, if you didn't have a new Edinburgh show, you didn't go to Edinburgh. Simple as that. You just wouldn't go to Edinburgh. Yeah. So now, the economic model for comics is that they write a new Edinburgh show and then they tour that. Yeah. And that's how they make a living.
They get their own social media following, so they can do a show and they can tour with it because they've got a following.
Comedy world is in really good hands at the moment. I think there's some brilliant... Really? I generally really do. I think there's some brilliant comics out there. Comes back to that argument again when I get so frustrated with older comics. I'm the only comic of my generation who hasn't gone a bit funny. There comes a stage when you have to accept, for the good of your own well-being and mental health, that schlepping around the circuit such as it is, continually, without very much changing what you're talking about, isn't good for you. There comes a stage, I don't know if you've heard of this mythical one-armed black lesbian who's going around.
She's taking all the gigs.
She's taking it. The reason a lot of people are not doing live at the Apollo or Taskmaster or Have I Got News For You is because of this mythical one-armed. And when you say to them, what's her name? Some stand-ups that we know will constantly take to social media to complain that they're too edgy for TV, and they're not. They're not good enough for TV. Yeah. But it's much easier for your own peace of mind to wake up in the morning and say, she's the reason I'm not getting these gigs. That's not fair. One of the reasons I admire Mark Thomas, he's doing topical stuff, he's doing political stuff, he's talking about the stuff he still cares about now, but he's also talking about how his views have changed, how his life has changed. He's talking from the perspective of a man in his early 60s. He's not in denial. Yeah. Arthur Smith is exactly the same. I'm directing his play called Oof that he's written with Phil Knight. So it's about 2 blokes who are 71, who meet in a park, realise that they used to do a double act together 30 years ago, until one of them fucked the other one over. But it's performed by 2 blokes who used to be in a double act 30 years ago until one of them fucked the other one over. So it's like, but they're completely true to their own age in it. They're not trying to be kids, they're not taking a piss out of kids, out of young people. They're accepting that generations move on. You can't just keep doing the stuff you were doing 30 years ago because it looks preposterous. You're 15 stone heavier and a lot balder. Unfortunately, so many comics of my generation, our generation if you like, just can't change, they can't adapt. It's not good for your mental health to get trapped to not be able to move on and then to blame this mythical one-armed black lesbian for the fact that you're not making progress anymore.
We could get that one-armed black lesbian on the show. We could do some booking.
Because the thing is, it's also a circle of life stuff.
Yeah. So there's like a little added bit to this episode. I love my cameras, but I also love watches. I think each episode I might wear a different watch or the same watch if I like them. So this one watch I'm wearing today is the Smiths Everest. Apparently Smiths is a very old UK company, and this watch it's a bit like the Rolex Explorer, but it's not, much cheaper, but it's really lovely watch. And this apparently was one of the watch that went up to Everest, Edmund Hillary. Remember him? He's quite a small watch, but I've got quite thin wrists, so it kind of works. Does it work, Frankie?
It works.
You like it? I like the bracelet as well, it's very nice. Very lovely watch. But there it is.
Some of the happiest times of my career was when Mark Thomas and I, we did Loose Talk on Radio 1, multi-award-winning radio show. It was Radio 1's first and last ever comedy show. It's produced by Amanda Iannucci. It was live, and Mark was kind of the sledgehammer and I was the stiletto. But we were always getting in trouble. We were always having to apologise to various people. We read letters out from prisoners, which was not allowed in case they were coded messages about escape. But we became the show that prisoners could write to. We had to do an apology once. There was talk about a first woman bishop. So Mark and I wrote this routine about why are they getting so upset about a woman bishop? And then said, well, it's obviously because God was a man. We know God was a man. And so we had this whole thing about, well, why we knew God was a man. And essentially the evidence, the proof was that we've waited so long for the second coming. It's like,
what a great gag.
So the Bishop of Oxford complained. Of course. That is. So we had to start a show 2 weeks later, so I'm not really sorry about this. The routine we did has upset 3 of the 4 major faith groups. All we can say is we're really sorry to all our Hindu listeners, because we feel clearly that we've left you out. So we've got this brilliant routine coming up later.
It's going to offend you.
Ganesh and his favourite bum. And of course, we then had to apologise for that. But we've got...
so we constantly apologising.
But we got... It's still my favourite ever letter of complaint. That's how long ago it was. He got letters. It's my favourite letter of complaint that this young lad wrote. And he said, I'm 22, I'm a devout Hindu. I just want to say I wasn't offended. But he said, in fact, me and my friends found it really funny. So please don't feel that, you know. And then P.S., you two are fucked in the next world.
That is great.
The idea of retiring fills me with horror. The idea that I could never be in a comedy dressing room again, I wouldn't be able to live. Freddie Flintoff is a mate of mine. Freddie, I worked with Jamie Redknapp and Freddie Flintoff at the same time. I love Jamie. Freddie took on all these daredevil things. And the reason he did it was because he loved cricket. Of course he loved cricket. When he retired, he didn't miss the cricket, he missed the dressing room.
Right.
I remember him telling me this one night. Everything he does is an attempt to recreate that feeling, that bond, that only people who have been in a dressing room before an international cricket game would understand.
Yeah.
If you were to say to me, look, Kevin, you'll never go on stage again, I would go, oh, all right, okay. If you were to say to me, you'll never be in a dressing room with other comedians again, I'd probably walk off a pier.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to cope with that. If there's a heaven, for me, it's a Pleasance Courtyard. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
right.
Pint of cider, because you know half the people in there, and I just love going. And it's the same last night. So after the show, there's all these, Steve Frost is there, Neil Malarkey's there. There's all these people, and it's just great. And then 10 minutes later, you're talking nonsense about comedy, because I love talking nonsense about comedy. I went through a really dark period about 15 years ago. Very big crisis of confidence, and part of it was the early days of the One-Armed Black Lesbian. Because I was up for the big thing was about to happen, and it didn't happen. And I was just like, that's the fucking point. And I took to the sofa, basically, turned the telly on and go, why has he got that and I haven't got that? I'm better than him. After about 6 months, my wife, this is a really brave thing to do, she said, look, do you know why you're not getting work? I went, yeah, because there's this conspiracy. It's like saying, and she'd say, I apologise for using the words. She said, no, it's because you're a at the moment. You're just being, no one wants to be around you. You come in the dressing room now, people go because you're just such a miserable, chippy. She booked me a train ticket to Edinburgh. She said, you'll find loads of people to stay with. Go up to Edinburgh for 3 nights. Go to see shows.
Yeah.
What I want you to do after every show is go up to the person whose show it was and say, that was great. Really enjoyed that. And I did it, and I came back a different person. So for 3 nights, I just went to see all these shows, make shows, and people I didn't know, and I'd introduce myself afterwards. And I actually quite enjoyed not being part of not having the pressure, not having the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
And I came back on the train, and the first thing I said to Ali, because it was really brave of her, it was a really brave thing to say to me, but it changed my attitude, it changed my life completely. I started getting work, and if she hadn't done that, I don't know what would have happened. There's not a comic on the circuit who hasn't got something, because you wouldn't be a comic.
Yeah.
You know, I've long had this argument with people about whether comedy and showbiz attracts people that are neurodiverse in the first place, or whether comedy and showbiz is such a weird thing to do. It makes you neurodiverse in a sense.
There should be a study on that, shouldn't there?
Well, there should be, because I think it is genuinely fascinating.
Yeah. Best and worst gigs. Best gig or worst gig? Which one do you go first?
Worst gig?
Yeah.
I don't even have to think about it. It's Ulster Young Farmers.
On
HMS Belfast.
Seriously?
Yeah. And it was at a time when Mark Thompson and I were at our pomp.
Yeah.
At the time, I thought, I didn't think I was untouchable, but I had this thing, I'm charming.
Yeah.
I can do anything to any audience. If I take the piss out of them and they don't like it, that'll be fine. And I should have done a little bit more research about the Ulster Young Farmers. Now, my mum's family, they're from 3 miles across the border into the Republic, in Donegal. The word Ulster should have been a giveaway. I knew the Ulster Young Farmers Association. I knew they were a long-established orange order. So, and with hindsight, it probably wasn't a good idea for my first greeting to them to be Jockey Allah, which is Our Day Will Come, the Sinn Féin.
Is that how you started?
Yeah, because I thought they'll a little smile on my face. I thought
that's just the opposite. Yeah, okay,
I thought they'll know that's my way of acknowledging.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
A couple more minutes in, I should have said, the food looks. I'll tell you what, the food looks amazing. I said, I'll tell you what, I think Bobby Sands would have been tempted. All right. That didn't go down well, and I was
that's actually quite a funny.
Well, it is, but not to the Ulster Young Farmers. It was so bad. It was funny, but I've been booked to do an hour.
An hour.
So after about 15 minutes, I had to say to them, "Look, the organisers over there, can we come to some kind of collective agreement that perhaps if I do 25 minutes, somebody at the front went 20."
Right.
So it's a terrible comedian's habit. You can storm it, and you'll still spot the one person who's not laughing.
Yeah.
This was the opposite. This was the opposite. There were 2 tables that just thought this was hilarious.
Right.
I was terrified. I thought, if this boat starts going, I'm in real trouble. Luckily, it's tied to but you've never seen somebody.
They turn the guns on you. Mr. Kevin Day, I want you to hold this. If you kind of stand in the middle again, look in the mirror. Mr. Kevin Day, what do you see when you look in the mirror?
I can see my mum.
Really?
Yeah, I can see my mum, but I pride myself that I probably still look young for my age, but it doesn't seem... I accept my age now, I'm 63 now.
Yeah.
It's actually quite an achievement for me to say that out loud, because we work in an industry that fetishises youth. If you worry about age, you can either say I wish I was 30 years younger, but if I was, I wouldn't be married to the woman I love, and I wouldn't have my wonderful son.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is embrace the age and find ways of talking about it, and just find ways of staying enthusiastic. And stand-up comedy does give you an excuse not to grow old. You're still dicking about in dressing rooms with each other.
That's lovely.
Barry Cryer was the youngest bloke I ever met, and Barry Cryer's a classic example of how you should be when you get older. Bob Monkhouse was a mentor of mine. I loved Bob Monkhouse. Right. Barry and Bob, unlike a lot of their generation, were not threatened by us at all.
Right.
The way I talk about the one-armed black lesbian,
yeah.
Bob and Barry were just fascinated by newer comics. Barry in particular, even if Barry's told you the story about Bob Hope before, how can you not want to hear a story about, the fact that Barry was obsessed with parrot jokes to the end of his life? You know, it's like, it's that... It's amazing how American...
You don't look at yourself as you walk in shops and mirror?
All the time.
Yeah.
Because every comic does.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you like what you see.
No.
I was at a Palace game a couple of weeks ago, Fulham. This bloke came up and said, "Can I have a photograph?" And I would say, "Yeah, but can I have a right to edit it if I don't like it and take another one?" Which makes people laugh. Yeah. But I mean it. So take the photograph. I say, "Can I have a look?" And I went, "Oh, can we take another one? Because I don't want." But there is a certain angle, and it drives my wife up the wall, because she said, "I know you do. I know there's a certain tilt to my chin, and a certain angle that if I look at, I look all right." So
what's the angle? Let me get it. No, we've got enough.
If you haven't got it by now. But exactly.
So talking about photographs, favourite photographs.
I'm going to ask that question in true talking head style.
Yeah.
You asking me if I had a favourite photograph that really led me down some avenues. Because like first of all, my stock answer is, well, any photograph of my cat. Any photograph of my cat. There's one of my mum and dad's wedding in 1957. My dad's from South London, although I found out recently through my auntie Pat. She's the family historian, and it turns out my dad, I almost thank God that he was dead, so I didn't have to confront him with this. Turns out he was born in St Pancras, and came to South London as a 6-month-old. And there's like, so, but anyway, my dad was working class and English. And my mum was from resolute Donegal peasant stock. But my dad was a Protestant. So no one from my mum's side came to the wedding. There was no one representing my mum at the wedding. And obviously somebody eventually said to the photographer, can you move some of his family round? Because there's one photograph where she's the last person in the picture, because there's her and dad, and then his family, and then no one else. That just broke my heart, that picture.
We'll do a selfie. Is that a look? One more.
Oh.
I'll send them to you. That's been...
I'm exhausted.
I think that's the longest shoot we've done to date. You're right. Do you want to sit down? Get him to sit down a minute.
I don't think I've stood up.
Thank you very much.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that was absolutely superb.